Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Tech Check episode 21. We continue building on the legacy that we're trying to build here in helping startups in Pakistan. Today, wanted to highlight somebody who's doing something similar to us, but a lot more enablement on the ground. A man I met a couple of years ago with a ton of energy, Khurram Zuberi, who started JumpStart Pakistan. Khurram, Assalamu alaikum. How are you today?
Walaikum salam. I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Farouk.
Thank you, Khurram, for joining us. Always a pleasure to see people who are involved in the ecosystem and trying to do good things. So, to kick things off, Khurram, tell us a little bit about you and Jumpstart Pakistan.
Okay, about myself, I have a infrastructure background, technical infrastructure background. Have been in it for almost 25 years, and worked in a corporate sector. And since the age of 18, been a serial entrepreneur, launched a lot of initiatives, and worked in the media. So basically, three things. Entrepreneurship has been in my blood pretty much since from the beginning.
Awesome.
That's a little bit about myself. And as far as Jumpstart Pakistan is concerned, I got to a point back in 2010, I believe, when I realized that in Pakistan, the startup ecosystem needs to actually shift from the mainstream to come up with some sort of like a localized version of the ecosystem. Usually what happens is we, especially in Pakistan, we actually go to the valley and try to bring in the existing framework about anything. And then implement it locally, it doesn't really work because for the sole reason that there is a human element. So then I came up with the localized version of the ecosystem, which we call it a greenhouse approach, as opposed to incubation approach.
Right.
And we'll talk more about that when we
Sure. Sure. No, that's great. And it's good to see these things, Khurram, because you're right. And I'm learning this very quickly with my journey here with Tech Check that, we in North America have a certain way of doing things and a way of looking at the world. That doesn't necessarily always translate one-to-one into that environment. So I'm glad to see you've seen and addressed that. So based on that, I want to expand more. So tell me more about this greenhouse effect. And I get the gist of where you're going at, but I'd like our audience to understand this.
So basically what happens is, ecosystem like Silicon Valley, you have, enough supply of eggs. So the people who are actually coming into the ecosystem, they know very well how to trade, how to make a financial forecast sheet, how to market, how to approach things, how to approach clients. In all those kind of terminologies, you probably would expect that any fresh graduate coming out of the university would know about those. With the ecosystems who are like just evolving, especially in the third world, the supply chain of those eggs which we want to incubate aren't really, are to that level where you expect them to do certain things, like start to trade, start to sell things. So you need a little bit of a hand holding in the beginning. And for that, that's why we actually took this term of greenhouse, where you need somebody to be there. When you actually sow the seed, you need a gardener to make sure that it's not getting too much sunlight. The branch is not getting out of proportion, it's bearing a fruit. If it's not bearing a fruit, you chuck it out, you put the new seed in. So think of it like, hands-off approach in the incubation cycle, where you just put the temperature and then, here's the chick come out after a certain time. Whereas in a greenhouse, you have a lot more hands-on approach. So that's the difference.
No, that's excellent. That's excellent. So that's a great way of kind of framing things up. So tell me a little more about, have you had any success stories come out of this scenario?
So we started back in 2014. We had our launch event in Islamabad. So at that time, I'm really, when I look back, we have come a long, long way. At that time, we actually scouted for a lot of startups. We only could come up with 3 at that point in time.
Right.
And now we open up application, there are 300 applications coming. So there is a major difference in terms of how the approach, like the ecosystem and the youngsters have taken it, that this could be a viable way for their career building. Since then, we actually, I think the biggest achievement, I would call it, more so than the startup, is to actually connect the diaspora with Pakistan. So we have this roughly about 200, 250, you can call them angel investors, but they are working in a different capacity. They're from the corporate sector and they spread all around the globe. So if you
Right.
start in Melbourne, Sydney, and all the way to the valley, pretty much the whole globe. Sometimes when we actually having a conference call, we have really big trouble finding a one middle time where everybody could be available.
Sure, sure, sure.
So this network has gone in. We provided them the platform. They are investing in connecting with the startups. So there are a lot of examples. I actually invested in myself, that we are taking some startups and taking them to the next level. Although we don't have the whole picture in front of us, because this is kind of like a germination process.
Right.
So it's not something which you have about 30 startups or 20 startups under one roof in one incubation center, and then you're making sure that, okay, they are doing certain things and then monitoring them every day. So it's not that kind of situation. But what we do is to connect them, and they go their own way. So that's how we approach it. So from 2014, we went into like 2 more cities. We added in 2015, Karachi and Lahore. And 2018, we actually went into 15 cities. So by saying that we've gone into those cities, which means we had our flagship event, which is called Shepherd's Spy. It's exactly like Shark Tank in Pakistan.
Right.
So we have like 4 investors sitting on the stage, and then they started pitching to them, and committing what they want to, whatever the ask is. So we went into Lahore, Faisalabad, Sialkot, Gujranwala, Peshawar, Quetta, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Karachi, Islamabad. I mean, all of those cities we actually went and helped physically that Shepherd's Spy, investor pitching happen. So something magical happened in 2018 when we had the Lift Pakistan conference. It's Learning, Innovation, Funding, and Technology.
Right.
In Pakistan. And that attracted a number of people from overseas. They traveled, and then we had roughly about 7,000-8,000 people came. And we had about 4 parallel sessions happening. And 2019 was just totally a game changer. We had it in 2 cities. So 4 days in Lahore, 4 days in Islamabad, and roughly about 25,000 people participated, and about 150 people traveled from overseas to participate in. And that was totally a game changer. We had 8 verticals: education, healthcare, technology, funding, agriculture, creative industries, tourism, and space technology and precision engineering. And now we are having in 4 cities this year, 2020. Hope everything goes well and COVID subsides. So God willing, we're going to be having in 4 cities: Karachi, Islamabad, Lahore, and Peshawar.
Great, great. So as I was asking, just, you've obviously now permeated and brought forward a lot of your non-traditional entrance into the startup world, from what I'm understanding. You haven't seen anything yet that's really, you're saying, hey, here's the next Uber or the next, Kareem, more relevant to Pakistan. Anything like that's come up yet or not yet?
Okay, Farouk, I mean, there are signs. I mean, in any ecosystem, things start to happen exponentially. So, I mean, right now, Zameen is very good example,
Right.
but people don't see that it took them 14 years to get to a level where they could. I mean, officially, I would call them the real, unicorn come out of Pakistan.
Sure, sure. Understood. And
Uh,
that's good. That's
so
good.
Kareem
Go
was,
ahead.
but I mean, a lot of things. I mean, it's initiated from the Gulf, And then obviously we started to claim it that it's a Pakistani company because one of the co-founders is Pakistani. But in a real sense, it's Zameen, because it kind of originated from Pakistan, and then also got to a level where now they're in the Gulf and trying to do other things too.
Good point. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Wonderful. Well, great. So, any other thoughts or observations for our audience? What do you think people should be doing if they want to get engaged?
Okay, so one thing everybody should realize that I was going to actually do a post. I do a quite regular post on the Pakistani ecosystem and overall how the entrepreneurship is taking its way through this whole process, which we initiated a while ago. So it was very few people didn't even know the word of entrepreneurship. So some of the likes of Azhar Rizvi, Jahara, those guys started back in 2005-06. That at that time, I mean, it was very very primitive. I mean,
Sure.
they started with the scaling and everything, and then from 2013-14, it just tried to sort of lift off. I would say to people that, I mean, now is the time. When you look at Pakistan, is full of opportunities, and I mean, opportunities for any entrepreneur is basically the problems. Who would have the most problems, basically? Yeah. So the problem are like, spread out like pretty much everywhere in Pakistan. I mean, tons of things needs to be solved, and nobody is like getting engaged. And the problem is, when the diaspora actually look back, they expect that it's going to be a developed world. We'll just land. Everything is going to be, hunky-dory. We're just going to apply, and we're going to have that, company registered. We're going to have the bank account opened up, and here we go. We'll start trading. Not the case if you go to Uganda, you go to Myanmar, you go to Sri Lanka. So think of it as any other developing nation. Once you think of it this way, you wouldn't just consider that you're going to your home country and then expecting that everything is going to be hunky-dory. So think of it this way. If you want to help Pakistan, and believe you me, this is just time for liftoff for Pakistan. From this, you cannot go more down. From this, you can just go up, 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 and up.
We certainly hope so. Thank you, Khurram. It's great, to always meet people like yourself who are enthusiastic about what's happening in the country, what's happening with the people. And again, one of the missions of TechShack, as you now have seen, is to ensure that we're casting the right light. And I think Khurram has framed it up very well. Let's not mislead you with expectations. It is a challenging marketplace to work in. But we also realize something. We often find ourselves, Pakistanis, and this is my personal observation, is we come outside of our environment and boy, do we flourish. I mean, it's hard pressed to find non-enterprising or non-talented Pakistanis working globally. So imagine being able to sprinkle some of that seed into the water back home. And what does that eventually do for us? Well, it allows that very young generation that we have up and coming to become much more self-sufficient. It diminishes the problems in the environment. And one thing that I'm also seeing, Khurram, that I'm passionate about, and I'm glad to see people are doing this, is we need more women in the workforce. We need more women in startups. We need more women in tech. And I find that to be a great balancing point for the country and potentially for our future. So, Khurram, thank you very much for spending this time with us today. I know you're a very busy guy. You got a lot going on, but we appreciate your passion and support, and we look forward to seeing you in your next event. Thanks for joining us today, Khurram.
Thank you, Farooq. Thanks for having me.
And to our audience, as you can see, we're continuing to build on the legacy, bring more stories, unique people with unique stories and unique capabilities. Please continue to support us. Follow us on our social media handles. They're all inside the video here at the end. Please very much support our sponsors, Solaritas Solutions, Ashari Ventures, and Open Silicon Valley. And with that, I wish all of you the best. Allah Hafiz.